Greetings and salutations. I'm Pat626. I'm the host of Subculture Shock on Twitch and a variety of other places. And I'm also a professional Fanby. It's actually an important day for me too, because it's National Non-Binary Day, which means that I get to celebrate not being a fanboy or a fangirl, but a fanbee. And so we're going to celebrate it by giving you a taste of something you haven't heard before. I have the brand new record from Zwaremachine, Conquest 3000. Doesn't drop until Saturday, but I'm going to play 30 minutes of it and give you the traditional professional fanbee deep dive and analysis on it. And you also get to get excited for this release, because I'm already excited because, I've heard it. I've actually been a fan of Phage of Zwaremachine for quite some time. He used to send me tracks back when I was DJing Subculture Shock on a thing that called The Radio. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's been long gone forever, But, yeah. So, when I came back and started DJing Subculture Shock as a podcast, immediately he reached out to me with his new project, Zwaremachine, and I've been playing it ever since. So the only reason, I'm going to respond to chat real quick before we get in, the only reason that I know to pronounce it Zwaremachine is because I have a recording of Phage saying that. So, yeah. And I might still be pronouncing it wrong, but, oh well. Anyways, let's get this going here. And boy, is it gonna get going. What a way to start. Like, holy crap. Holy crap, is this song catchy. First of all, musically, it sounds like Skinny Puppy being asked to do the soundtrack for Tron Legacy. And I want to watch that now. I want to see that. But also, Phage doesn't often get into this higher register of singing. You're going to hear a lot of comparisons to old school industrial over the next few days as reviewers review this. But this also reminds me, at least vocally, of Alien Sex Fiend, and that is high praise, and I hope that Phage continues to do stuff like this and continues to keep singing in this style, because it's fantastic. The thing is, though, I admit that when I first heard this, when I first listened to this song, I was having a little bit of a hard time trying to figure out, what was going on in it, what it's about. Because of this part here, the you got a gun, I got a bullet. And I was like, okay, so what's the point of that? Are we going to put them together and be happy? Is this some kind of, you get a line, I get a pole, we'll go fishing at the crawdad hole? And I sat listening to the song over and over again. And then I noticed something about this got a gun, I got a bullet part. Because got can be taken two different ways. It can mean I have or I was given. But in the very beginning of the song, it says, you've got a gun, I got a bullet. Alright? And I feel like if Phage was going to mean I have got for I got a bullet, he would have put the have in there, because he put the have in there for the beginning, for the you've got a gun. So therefore, I feel like the narrator is speaking to a person who has been given a gun, and the narrator was almost certainly shot. And so for the rest of the song, the lyric becomes, you got a gun, I got a bullet. So now we're talking about both past tense things. But it seems to imply that someone gave this person the gun. Probably the same person who wanted the narrator shot. If you think about it, we've got this comparison going on between that and the international hero, the nobody from nowhere. What made him a hero? What got the narrator shot? It defies logical explanation, apparently, to the point where the narrator, as we just heard, can't believe his eyes. And so coming up here, we get a part where the narrator remembers a time where we used to put up a fight. And that, I think, is kind of like the final key to this. So, because I want you to therefore understand that I'm creating this whole narrative from one word, from "you have got." So this narrative that I've constructed, therefore, if we think about the time when we used to put up a fight, so the narrator at some point fought for what he cared about and was shot for it, and meanwhile the international hero is getting a gun for it, is actually being given the gun to commit violence. And it's an interesting comparison because it kind of comes up with the idea of what you do is either going to get you killed or get you praised based on whether it's sanctioned or not. The only people that are allowed to kill people are the people that the state says should be killing people. Only violence is allowed by the state. And this whole thing came about just because I figured it out because Mach changed like one word. And if that's not like a moment, I don't really know what is. It's probably also just me thinking too hard, which is why my head exploded. Meh. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about that background music there. I've been going on about Mach's lyrics, but you can hear that bass line there. There's a lot of live bass throughout this album, and that's kind of what makes Zwaremachine just absolutely incredible in my eyes. Kind of makes them singular against a lot of industrial acts currently being performed. Yeah, they call themselves minimalistic, but they're using live drums, which, is done, but also live bass. And that adds such a heaviness to it, but it also gives it its own characteristic, its own funkiness. And I'm going to call out D-Bot a couple of times for certain for the bass playing that's going on here, because more than once it would just grip me. And that's the thing that I kind of like about Zwaremachine, is that a lot of different elements are combining together and there's nothing really overshadowing the other. They call it minimalistic, but that's kind of unfair because each part is fairly simplistic. The vocals are snippets that are repeated. The bass goes through just a couple of different repetitions. The drums the same, but each of them are arranged so that very few combinations are happening multiple times. It creates this complex sense of flow, of build-up and breakdown that is really impressive, especially in the area of minimalistic music like this. And I like that even vocally, the vocals are not overshadowing everything. In a way, the vocals are just another instrument being played. And Mach told me that he writes a lot of the lyrics off the top of his head and then arranges them specifically. And I think that's really neat because it's just like opening up like Fruity Loops or some sort, FL Studio for those of you that aren't ancient, and changing your loops and your synth slides everywhere, doing that with the vocals. And I think that's a great way to make it all mesh together. So this kind of sounds like Front 242 and Knits Forever having a fight in my headphones and everyone wins, and the bass then makes it singular own sound. Now, we talked about how this is like minimalist, repeated vocals. The problem with those can be that they have to mean something or they get boring, they grow stale. And furthermore, they have to mean something because it's kind of like how we talked about in the Ashes Fallen review a couple weeks ago, that if your lyrics are too vague, then they mean nothing. And what's the point of them being there? So, I think what really is going on here is we're getting this like repeated chorus. We're going to talk about what that means next, but we're getting this woman. Who is she? She's alone. Everything she does is based on that concept. She curses a man, probably her ex-lover, and also continues to dream of him. And being alone is suffering, and dying alone is ending the game. Meanwhile, the narrator, probably the ex-lover, is the chill that surrounds her and the fire that consumes her, even though he is no longer there. And despite that division, he will still haunt her when he returns. And both of them are playing the parts they wrote for themselves. By defining herself through her loneliness, the woman continues to play a game that only death releases her from. It causes her suffering, and she's going to continue to experience it as long as that is her only defining characteristic. Meanwhile, the man continues to play that part, justifying it in much the same way. We have to be what we are. But neither of them have to be that way. The man could change himself, but he seems to be afraid to do the work. And speaking as someone who's been trapped in past relationships for a long time, it's hard to define myself as myself and not in relation to other people. But we have to do that, because if we don't do that, then we're just not going to be anything. Right, sorry, I just started reading for a second. So this one is kind of like on the nose. Kind of obvious what's going on compared to some of the others. It's obviously about man-made climate change. We've got a parasol which specifically provides shade from the sun, and the record heat waves that we're experiencing kind of make it clear why we would need one of those right now. But we need a parasol big enough to save our dying cities, as the lyric goes here. And so while the booming drums coming from Dine Off the Sierra and that killer bass drive the song along, what really gets me in here is this slow-moving high synth. It gives it this feeling of heat, like you can almost imagine it just being in the background of like panning vistas of red or yellow soaked deserts and glaring like sunspots, just lens flare all over the place. And it's a sound you can see, which is really cool. Really cool, and I feel like it's not something that you don't get a lot of musical imagery from the music these days. A lot of it is just, what we expect from vocals. And let's talk about the vocal imagery for a second, these lyrics here. There's a killer line in here. We can no longer deny it. We are slaves to the climate. Now, obviously, the obvious line, the obvious meaning for that is that we can no longer deny the presence of man-made climate change. Despite all the power and influence humanity may have, we're ultimately affected by environmental changes. If the planet gets too hot to support us, we will die. So I'm going to actually read something for a second, not something I usually do, but I wasn't expected to memorize this. It reminds me about what George Carlin said about the Save the Planet movement. He said the planet has been through a lot worse than us. It's been through earthquakes, volcanoes, plate tectonics, continental drifts, solar flares, sunspots, magnetic storms, the magnetic reversal of the poles, hundreds of thousands of years of bombardment by comets, asteroids, and meteors, worldwide floods, tidal waves, worldwide fires, erosion, cosmic rays, recurring ice ages, and we think some plastic bags and some aluminum cans are going to make a difference? The planet isn't going anywhere. We are. We are going away. Pack your shit, folks. We're going away, and we won't leave much of a trace either. Maybe a little styrofoam. The planet will be here, and we'll be long gone. Just another failed mutation. Just another closed-in biological mistake. An evolutionary cul-de-sac. The planet will shake us off like a bad case of fleas. We're the ones that are being damned here. We're damning ourselves and any living species we managed to take down with us, because in the end, we need Earth more than it needs us. But also, we're slaves to our current economic climate. And until we can shake off the thrust of the almighty dollar, we won't be able to convince the corporations actually doing the majority of the damage to stop. Remember, a can to recycle doesn't mean dick when factories are belching coal vapors into the atmosphere. I have a lot to say about that. And so, skipping ahead a little bit to zero containment, this one actually can also be about the environment, but that's kind of where we get a little funny here, because while there are a few points in this album that I feel can mean a few different things, this is a song that once again falls into the category of the song's so nice I analyzed it twice. I spent a lot of time listening to this one, which is good because it's the new single, so I gotta be familiar with it. And it gave me some ideas about, the obvious meaning is that it's like an angry protest song about greed ruining the environment. Okay, there's that imagery of burn, and it's probably forests that aren't contained. The atmosphere cannot sustain the impact, resulting in no future, as lyrics go. Much like the warnings of Parasol. And, but the other line that gets repeated is, under the table, we made the arrangement. And in terms of climate change, I feel like it's referencing the various greed-influenced decisions that led to vast fires. So, for instance, last year, while the pandemic was a big deal, did you know that quite a great deal bit of the Amazon burned down last year? Not Amazon.com, unfortunately, but no, like the Amazon rainforest. Reports suggest that 95% of these fires were started with human intervention, and most of this was just deforestation to make room for more profitable pastures to satisfy the need for animal products. So deregulation and similar conditions in America have resulted in wildfires being out of control as well. And most of those instances, that is just someone trying to make a buck, consequences be damned. Although there was that humorous forest fire started by a gender reveal party. As a non-binary person, I giggle at that one. But anyway, the environmental consequences are gonna be severe. To the point where even the people making these decisions will see their empires tumble down to ashes upon the ground, just like the song says. So, obviously, it's pretty good at a chance that that's what's going on here. But there's also a lot in the music that kind of makes me think that this could be almost like an angry warning of revolution and an idea reaching out to everybody to make the revolution happen. Narrator mentions that the end starts with the fire, but he calls it a burning cosmic desire, like the desire for freedom from the shackles placed upon us. And perhaps even the shackles placed upon us by, the arrangements made under the table. So the atmosphere that cannot sustain the fire now is political machinations. They gotta be destroyed. All it takes is one fire that can't be contained, and the empire will crumble. So in that interpretation, we're the fire. Each of us thinks that we cannot do anything to save the society, but together we can become a fire too large to contain, and if we're not contained, our message spreads. We refuse to be contained by misinformation, media blackouts, retaliation, etc. We will continue to spread until the empire burns. Immediately moving on to the title track, Conquest 3000, which I've actually heard many times before, and so D-Bot, again, like I said before, just really bringing it along with that bass. In my opinion, is the kind of the highlight of this song. Now, I have to apologize to Zwaremachine because this is an incredible song. It is an incredible song worthy of all the interpretive muscle that you give it, and it demands, it's dancey, it demands you move forward, and the lyrics do so much with so little. You know, we could have been something else, but you chose corporate wealth. We could have been better, but you decided for all of us. 1% of the population owns the vast majority of wealth, so the rest of us are fighting over scraps, which leads to the horrible decisions that we're hearing in the background right now. How much is too much? How many dead at what cost? How many dreams have we lost? You know, a lot of people slowly blame the anti-maskers in America for the horrendous death count from the coronavirus. And I have plenty of anger for them because at the end of the day, we all have to make a decision that they chose poorly. But I still have to recognize that a lot of those choices came about because ultimately our government pushed for policies that got us all back to work as soon as possible. It focused most of the bailout on businesses who proved they're so bad at managing money that it doesn't take much for them to topple. It proved, if anything, just how flimsy late-stage capitalism is. But, you know, we are all like, no, we gotta save the economy because it's more important than the workers, you know, keeping the economy going. If you look at every other country that's shut down, their businesses are bouncing back, and, you know, ours just made record profits, and we have over 600,000 corpses. We don't even, I like that the song points out though, that we don't even see the struggle that way. We have to make these choices because of the politics made to divide, as the lyrics go. Because of that, we see our fellow man as enemies, even though that's not the case. What you want isn't our choice. What you say isn't our voice. I remember seeing an exit poll from like 2014, I think, and the majority of voters were voting for marijuana legalization and greater wages, but then voting for Republican members of Congress who, of course, weren't going to give that to them. Voters constantly vote against their own interests because representatives and billionaires have convinced them that the real enemies are immigrants, queer people, or women having abortions. Democrats do that too, you know, they know we'd be even worse under Republicans, so they can't glue no matter who and voice big business supporters on which we vote for because the alternative is worse. But we stay divided, fighting over the crumbs. And this song does such a good job with that we could have been something else, which is why I have to apologize to Zwaremachine, because when I first heard it, all I could hear was, we could be zombie elves. And so now every time I hear that song, I hear that. We could be zombie elves. And I don't want to diminish your song in that way, but I have to make the meme. I'm required to make the meme. It's who I am. We have to be what we are. As you said, it's your fault. Anyway. So this song is killer. They're all killer, but this was clever because I feel like it goes hard, it goes deep, it presents a problem, but also kind of hints at a solution. So obviously this is a resistance song. This is the second politically charged album that I'm reviewing in a row, which, you know, good, I want more of these. But we live in a society where resistance is necessary, but also incredibly difficult. Not just because our oppressors have all the weapons, but also because they have all the resources. It's hard to resist when we're assaulted, as the song says, over and over again. We've got the oh man, that bass, gotta stop for a second. Like, just, that's what makes so much of this music. Anyway, same shit every day. includes the constant barrage of media debates and think pieces that portray, things like man-made climate change as like a hoax. If only one out of 100 scientists doesn't believe man-made climate change is real, they put him on the screen. Cis people get plastered all over the screen talking about how non-binary and trans people are at best not real and at worst a threat to society. A panel of men discussing the ethics of abortion. The fucking Trump presidency, where every day we had a new reason to hate our lives. But, we're closer to the grave and hidden in the pain, as the song just said, because every day we have to walk through this gauntlet and work ourselves to death. It's so exhausting and makes each day harder than the last. And the hardest part is this fear that nothing will ever change. Because any change that happens seems to be so slow and cost lives and souls. It's hard to tell what will be more miserable, living in the system or fighting it. And as the song says, you have to fight the repetition. It wears us down until we often capitulate. But here's the thing. If repetition is bad, if repetition is something that hurts us, why are these lyrics repetitive? Why is this album repetitive? Because despite all of that, we have resisted, and we can resist. And the best way that we can do this is use our oppressors' tools of repetition. Keep trying to find yourself. Keep resisting with any energy you can muster. If someone comes up to you and says, move, then you look at them and say, no, you move. I just quoted something, didn't I? Is she staring at me? I think she's staring at me. So yeah, I love that because, he doesn't come out and say that this is how we do it, but it does say you can resist, you can find yourself, and the way that we do that is just by consistently trying. I can't promise it'll be pretty. I can't promise we'll all make it, but we are ants wearing a groove of change on a sidewalk as long as we continue to walk together, and I feel like that's what's going on in this. Like, that's why the repetitive nature, the chanting nature of these songs work so well, because they're almost like battle cries to take with you, to move you forward. Has it almost been 30 minutes already? So I haven't played every song, but that's because I've got a limited time. But all of them are great. So we're going to end up here with the last song on the album, Until Tomorrow. So if you were expecting a slow jam to close out this record, you have not been paying attention to this album. Like most of the album, though, I feel like this is a struggle between maintaining hope and recognizing how oppressive our society is. I do want to, before I get into the lyrical analysis, though, I want to point out that I feel that there are not enough uses of tubular bells in music anymore, especially in industrial, and more of that, please. Thank you, Zwaremachine, for giving me some. But there's this feeling of desperation, like if I could just make it through the night. I don't know about you, but I've been in a just one more week mode for a decade now. But deep within us, there's a core that can't be owned, according to this song. And I very much believe that's true. And if we stay true to ourselves, it's the greatest form of resistance that we can muster sometimes. But depending on how you interpret the title, Until Tomorrow, this is either an encouragement to stay strong or a warning that you best change things now. Because on the positive side, I never knew. The thoughts keep coming. The thoughts that kept coming were only a clue. And so that can refer to to how the dreams the narrator escaped into were actually his mind telling him how the world should be. You know, he keeps having these dreams over and over that foreshadow what was said, such as like revolutionary rhetoric discussed through most of the album, joining with others in the movement. And considering that the narrator is just trying to make it through the night into tomorrow, this is probably the most likely interpretation. And I like it because it's a very helpful one. That said, there's another possibility in there. You can't overlook the fact that until tomorrow keeps repeating after, and the police state can never own. Talking about, that core inside ourselves. So, in this interpretation, the thoughts that keep coming are the assault that makes them just want to make it through the night. Because they're foreshadowing the next level of oppression. Okay, so there's a dream state. There it is. So you can see exactly what I mean. There is a dream state, a place we can go, and the police state can never own. And then the very next words are until tomorrow. So, does that mean that you best change things now? Before they find a way to own that part of you? Or does it mean that we need to, as long as you stay true to that, they'll never own all of you and then they can resist? Honestly, both of them could work together. We must resist now. So the core of our beings, our hopes and dreams continue to be take strength in that, but don't just don't retreat into it, because if you do, if you stop resisting, you might not be you tomorrow, and that's where they're going to leave us. They're going to leave us with this either way you look at it, it is a call forward. And I feel like if I have to say anything about this album, other than what I've been saying, it's that this is very much a collection of chants. It's a collection of chants to wake us up to certain things and to push us forward to correct those things. And oof. But it's an incredible dancey album, and it's coming out on the 17th, so I hope you enjoyed the preview of it, and thank you as always for letting me ramble on for a bit. Whew.